Much is said about wanting to be an heir, but would you like to inherit your father's criminal organization? A very dangerous mafia? Whether he wanted to or not, that's what happened to Seo Ji-hwan, who, back in 2013, became the leader of the Bulldogs gang. However, his career was short-lived because, as soon as he defeated their great rival, the Kittens gang, it was time to retire. He dissolved the group and went into hiding, leaving no trace, or almost none, as in 2023, we find him at a Buddhist temple, completely out of place in his black leather outfit. So, we can't say he's flying under the radar, especially when he commands his partners to clean up a bloody spot with his deep, rough, and intimidating voice. Although his business seems suspicious, we're actually talking about an honest job. His voice may be harsh, but his heart is tender. Ji-hwan is the president of his own meat production company, Thirsty Deer. But it has a unique trait. He only hires ex-convicts, helping reintegrate them into society and giving them a second chance for an honest life away from crime. That's why, when one of his employees goes missing, a former drug dealer, Ji-hwan knows exactly where to look. The headquarters of the Kittens gang, a nightclub serving as a front for illegal substance trade. Before starting his investigation, though, he bumps into a woman, Go Yun-ha. After all, who said mobsters can't have their own K-drama moment? The difference here is that it's not love at first sight, or even at second sight. On the contrary, they start off on the wrong foot due to a series of misunderstandings. First, because Yun-ha, dressed in a police uniform, sees the ex-gangster in a commotion, misinterprets the situation, and arrests him with toy handcuffs. Then, they meet again the next day, this time with her fully equipped in a mascot costume, and end up getting into a Tom and Jerry-style mess. Ji-hwan suspects she's a drug dealer because of the colorful candies she's carrying, identical to the drugs the Kittens gang is selling to go unnoticed. But in reality, she's far from being either a cop or a criminal. He realizes this in the clumsiest way possible, by swallowing one of the supposedly illegal candies. That's right. He feels firsthand that it's just a sweet treat. Because Yun-ha is a children's content creator and entertainer. On her calmest days, she's defeating plush monsters with her mini superpowers. After all, kids know her as Mini Unny. However, she's not at her professional peak. Sweet, caring, and dedicated to kids, Yun-ha loves her work. But her company focuses solely on profit, promoting extravagant toys and children's products from wealthy sponsors. Since Mini Unny's advertising style leans more towards educational fun than consumerism, she's considered the worst-performing creator and is on the verge of being fired. That's why she occasionally takes side gigs as a mascot, hoping not to run into an ex-gangster who might ruin her career prematurely. Since he's threatening to leave her brainless if she gets within 50 meters of him again, she's quite happy at the thought of never seeing him again. But that's not what fate has in store. Yun-ha, often the laughingstock among her colleagues and always stuck with the jobs no one else wants, ends up at a children's food festival. With a lot of effort, she proves she's a natural-born marketer. But unlike her, another group struggles to promote their products, Ji-hwan's Thirsty Deer employees. They're trying to test the quality of their kids' sausages and gauge the public's reception. Unfortunately, the results aren't good. Parents are wary of the company, knowing it's composed of ex-convicts, and fear their children might consume tainted food. Things go from bad to worse when one of the staff accidentally bumps into a short-tempered dad, escalating into a heated argument that leaves the kids crying hysterically. Yun-ha comes to the rescue of the little ones, proving that a woman armed with a saucepan can accomplish a lot. Once the situation calms down and the crowd disperses, Ji-hwan arrives to find his team cleaning up the mess. The employees are regretful about the fight but also defensive, frustrated that they can't escape their reputations despite working honestly now. Their boss understands, but still delivers some harsh truths. Even though they've served their sentences, their past wrongdoings can't be erased. It's up to them to work 3 times harder to earn people's trust and prove they've changed. They could definitely take some tips from Yun-ha, who is already working hard in another role as a fun pizza maker. Inevitably, Ji-hwan spots her during his slow-motion walk amid soap bubbles. And while her contagious smile hits his heart directly, the mop handle does the same to his ribs, in a much more painful way. At this moment, Yoonha has a choice to make and opts to let him tumble down the stairs, to the horror of the battalion of desperate men watching. But better that than becoming a brainless woman, right? After all, he did threaten her to stay away. The tough ex-gangster ends up in the hospital. Despite his dramatic employees already preparing a funeral, he's alive, albeit with a few broken ribs. And you know how it goes. Nothing to do in the hospital, so he decides it's a great idea to look up information about Minnie Unnie. But no one expected him to specialize, scouring every corner of the internet and pulling an all-nighter binge-watching her channel. Ji-hwan watched and liked every single one of her videos. After this thorough analysis, he's no longer worried she might be a spy for a rival gang. But the situation is far more complicated because now she's a threat to his heart. That's it. He's fallen hard. What other explanation is there for this man, completely out of control of his own mind, imagining Minnie Unnie inside giant soap bubbles? The power of thought is so strong that she shows up in the flesh at his hospital room to apologize. But when she tries to leave peacefully, without needing her secret self-defense gear, his employees arrive for a visit. With no other option, she's forced to hide under the blanket with the handsome man, a very questionable hiding spot. After earning a master's and PhD in Yoonha's life, Ji-hwan finally understands that she isn't dangerous. That's why he's terrified when his loyal companions vow to take revenge on her in the most heinous ways possible, even if it costs them life imprisonment. Ji-hwan calms them down and kicks them out of the room, finally left alone with Yoonha. But before his face can burn with embarrassment over yet another classic K-drama stare, she flees toward freedom. Free, but not at peace, as her phone suddenly explodes with terrible comments on a video she didn't post. It turns out her mediocre boss took the festival footage, where Yoonha calmed down the fight, and edited it in an overly sensationalist and distorted way. This tanks Thirsty Deer's image even further. Millions of viewers see the video and label them as violent troublemakers. Instantly, business partners and investors cancel contracts, and stores pull their products off shelves because no one wants to buy meat from a company run by criminals. But they're not the only ones affected. Yoonha suffers as well. Her boss acted in bad faith, aiming to go viral and make more money from views, without caring about her reputation, which is also tarnished. It now looks like she posted an inappropriate video for children on her channel. To top it off, she's bombarded with hundreds of hateful and threatening comments. Unable to stay in bed while his work is sabotaged, Ji-hwan dons his best mobster leather jacket and storms into her agency with his chief legal officer, Il-young, to settle the score and intimidate her shady boss. While everyone shakes in their boots at the sight of expensive lawsuit papers and defamation complaints that could lead to prison time, Yoonha digs through her boss's desk and grabs the external hard drive with the raw festival footage. On their way out, Ji-hwan wants to give her the benefit of the doubt, but it's hard to believe she doesn't even control her own account and could have done something so frivolous to boost her career at others' expense. He's right when he says his men are victims and don't deserve ridicule, but she's also innocent and doesn't deserve the blame. That's why, upon returning home, Yoonha re-edits the material to show the truth. The ex-convicts didn't start the fight. They were just trying to showcase their work like anyone else, and in the end, they even made peace with the parents. With the re-edited video reposted, Thirsty Deer finally begins to recover. This action undoubtedly warms Ji-hwan's heart, making him feel bad for misjudging her. And his guilt only grows when he sees her volunteering in the pediatric ward, cheering up sick children at the hospital. That's why he gathers his melted heart and pushes past the awkwardness to talk to her. It takes some time, though, as he seems to forget how to speak when near her. It's all quite funny, because they both seem afraid of each other, acting like clumsy penguins out of their natural habitat. But with a little beer, he apologizes for the harsh words he said, and doesn't forget to glance back a few times as he leaves. This won't be their last meeting, though. Their next encounter, unfortunately, comes at a bad time for Minnie Unnie. The milk she promoted at the festival and on her channel caused food poisoning in children, and now she must face the consequences of associating her name with a manufacturer she didn't research thoroughly enough. It's a very serious and valid issue, but it's a bit infuriating that all the blame falls on someone with such a good heart, while other less scrupulous individuals, like her famous colleague Kang Yena, seem to thrive with ease. When she arrives at the hospital and finds the parents panicking over their children in the emergency room, Yoon-ha feels powerless, unable to do anything but endure the wrath of the adults. But before a box of milk, hurled by an angry father, can hit her, Ji-hwan shields her with his own body, and to get her out of there, simply throws her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Before leaving, he delivers an obvious moral lesson to the furious parents. It turns out, he had just been discharged from the hospital and saw Yoon-ha running. Sensing something was wrong, he decided to follow her. Now he insists on taking her home, though the ride is a bit awkward since he doesn't know how to comfort her. Instead, it's Yoon-ha who apologizes, admitting she initially misjudged his company, relying solely on appearances. When she's safely dropped off at her best friend Gumiho's house, who by the way is immediately charmed by the dashing lawyer, Yoon-ha has to deal with the ex-mobster's indecision. He's caught in a dilemma. Should he refuse her offer to wash his stained jacket or use it as an excuse to see her again? He wrestles with this for a few seconds, but eventually chooses the latter. Guilt also triumphs, as Yoon-ha still blames herself for convincing the parents to buy the milk. Luckily, the contaminated product didn't pose severe risks to the children's lives, and one of the angry mothers apologizes, acknowledging she's partially to blame. After all, it's a parent's responsibility to check what their child consumes, not to blindly trust the internet. In the end, she even thanks Minnie for being the companion her daughter needs, educating and entertaining her instead of pushing expensive toys like other creators. This calms Yoon-ha's heart a little, because she chose this career precisely to make children happy, ensuring they never feel alone like she once did. Unfortunately, Yoon-ha had a troubled childhood. Her absent father owed money, putting her and her mother in tense situations with rough mobsters. She lived in loneliness and fear until one day a little boy appeared, Hyunwoo. He was the comfort she needed. But nowadays, she doesn't even know where he is. It's not for lack of trying, as she sought out many Hyunus in the world, but none of them were the one she truly wished to find. However, he might be closer than she thinks, and could emerge as a potential rival for Ji-hwan in winning Yoon-ha's heart. Enter Jang Hyun-woo, a prosecutor who first met her after being rejected on a blind date. After receiving a small umbrella from the kind woman, he researched her and grew to admire her work so much that he spent his post-work hours typing out the entire criminal code in the comment sections, defending her from the hate she received due to the controversies. When they formally meet for her to testify about the nightclub drug case, Yoon-ha becomes hopeful he might be the Hyun-woo from her childhood, since they share so many similarities, from age to career aspirations. But she hardly has time to focus on this, as the universe seems entirely against her, giving her no moment of peace. Naturally, Yoon-ha's superior doesn't take responsibility for anything, pushing all the blame for the milk controversy onto the most disadvantaged employee. First, he shuts down her account, and a short while later, he coldly refuses to renew her contract, claiming she wasn't performing as well as others. In other words, she's unemployed. Without a job or money, she swallows her pride and agrees to clean the apartment of the malicious Yena. There, she gets a close look at the woman's vanity, who achieved fame and success using methods completely different from Yoon-ha's. But this doesn't give Yena the right to humiliate her in front of her friends. Moreover, she might become a romantic rival since she also knows Ji-hwan. Years ago, Ji-hwan, as the kind-hearted mobster he was, paid off Yena's father's debts, saving her from the kittens gang. Since then, she's been fixated on him, wanting to repay his generosity. Unfortunately for her, between Yena and the downcast Minnie Unnie, Ji-hwan doesn't hesitate in choosing the latter. Blessed be the overcrowded food stalls, because now the two must share a table. While Ji-hwan sticks to soda, Yoon-ha indulges in soju. The more she drinks, the more truths spill out, like admitting she dislikes criminals because they took away her childhood. Ji-hwan becomes so upset that he was one of those people she dislikes that, by mistake, he grabs the wrong bottle. That glass of alcohol gets him so drunk, he can't even walk on his own. If Yoon-ha thought she'd be carried like a princess, she suddenly finds herself having to care for a drunken ex-mobster who runs off to the nearest playground. There, he energetically frees his inner child, shouting enthusiastically for Mini Unny. The second-hand embarrassment from watching this scene is immense, but the urge to laugh is even greater. Who would have imagined seeing this always serious man, with a husky and seductive voice, turning into a giant baby with red cheeks, spinning endlessly on a carousel? Poor Yoon-ha is left utterly confused, barely understanding what's happening. But it's so funny that she convinces herself to join in, and this turns into a therapy session as she also lets loose and forgets her adult worries for a few minutes. The night of fun and comfort winds down when the two tumble into the sand. Ji-hwan, overly sensitive and without self-control, inadvertently confesses that he watches only her videos and encourages her to keep going. After all, he misses them terribly. And indeed, just days ago, he was at home in the depths of depression, frustrated because all of Mini Unny's videos were unavailable. So practically hearing him say he needs her to survive, while she stumbles over his long legs, it's no wonder she's deeply shaken. For now, though, her priority is getting him home safely. The next morning, Ji-hwan feels like he could die of embarrassment because he remembers everything perfectly. And the fact that he daydreams about the woman he can't get out of his mind doesn't help. Should he be paying attention in the meeting? Of course. But imagining Yoon-ha beside him in the cutest and most irresistible way is too overpowering. To his employees, the boss looks like a complete lunatic while we enjoy watching him hallucinate. If he was already on the verge of collapse from his adorable delusions, imagine when he decides to send a message to Yoon-ha asking if she got home safe. But due to a typing error, he ends up sending an incomplete sentence that comes across as an insult. Someone needs to rescue this man because he's on the brink of losing it. Anxious to explain himself, he calls her, but the conversation is interrupted by a man evicting Yoon-ha from her home while Ji-hwan listens in. It turns out it was an apartment sponsored by her agency, and since they fired her, the cowards kicked her out without warning, leaving her homeless and humiliated. She needs to scrape together 1 million won today, or she'll sleep on the streets. Or even better for us, she could run into Ji-hwan along the way. While walking to the house where little Hyunwoo once lived, which, coincidentally, is now home to the worried and sweet ex-mobster, his top priority is ensuring Yoon-ha's safety. So, he offers her help in a way that doesn't embarrass her for her situation. Using the excuse of his leather jacket, and to check if the laundry properly cleaned the milk stain, he invites her in and offers her dry clothes to keep warm while he conducts his meticulous inspection. Meanwhile, a sudden wave of sadness hits Yoon-ha, and she breaks down over the children's comments asking her to return quickly, realizing her dream is falling apart. But to heal her heartache, Ji-hwan quickly springs into action, and to convince her to stay a little longer, he offers her ramen, which she accepts. However, dinner never happens because she falls asleep before it's ready. Being ever so careful, Ji-hwan carries her to the guest room. The next morning, Yoon-ha wakes to find 6 men, a bulldog, and a lavish breakfast spread. They're all shocked to discover that the special guest is a woman, specifically the rat they once suspected of being a rival gang spy. Now they understand she's just Mini Unny, harmless to everyone, except Ji-hwan, for whom she's anything but. Despite being a respected leader, Ji-hwan turns into a love-struck fool in her presence, completely shaken by her. And she better not think of touching any dirty dishes after eating, because every man has his own assigned tasks. Yoon-ha feels a bit lost in how to repay their kindness for letting her stay the night, but then she's given a role. Ji-hwan has been searching for his missing employee, a former drug dealer. Naturally, he suspects the Kittens gang, who hate losing their criminal recruits to the kind-hearted mobster who hires reformed convicts. To continue the search, they need to visit the missing worker's home. However, there's a younger sister there, and it's better to send someone less intimidating than a 6-foot-tall man who scares kids without meaning to. And who better to handle children than Yoon-ha herself? Ji-hwan isn't thrilled about bringing her along, fearing for her safety. But the lawyer reassures him that it's safe. And we can trust him. After all, Il-young is the official Cupid for these two. Not only does he give romantic advice to his boss, but he also nudges the pair together. It's a good thing Yoon-ha comes along because, even though the brave little girl protects her home from the unknown man, she's clearly scared. That's when Mini Unny steps in, winning over the child's heart while Ji-hwan searches for clues about his employee's whereabouts. Deep down, he fears that Taek, being a recent hire, may have returned to crime. After all, changing one's life is difficult. But upon seeing the state of the house, Ji-hwan realizes the ex-dealer was likely kidnapped and hadn't broken his promise to use his second chance to live honestly and care for his little sister. With no useful clues, all Ji-hwan can do is overflow with tenderness as he watches Yoon-ha flying a kite with the little girl. But then, out of nowhere, a speeding car appears. It's not a gangster but prosecutor Hyun-woo, who is outright rude and confrontational with Ji-hwan, as he already knows him from previous cases and firmly believes that criminals never change. It's clear there's more to this tension, but for now the prosecutor is paranoid about Yoon-ha being in danger from bad company. This hits Ji-hwan hard. He agrees that unforeseen situations could arise, so he retreats into his shell and sends Yoon-ha back with Hyun-woo. Yoon-ha, ever understanding, acknowledges the prosecutor's concern. Still, throughout the ride home, she defends Ji-hwan. Despite not knowing much about his past, she can tell that he and his employees aren't as bad as people claim. Surprisingly, she feels safe around them, a realization that scratches at Hyun-woo's pride. Her words don't sway his prejudice, especially since his own eyes have shown him something different, solidifying his belief that Ji-hwan is dangerous. The root of his conviction lies in an incident 10 years ago, where Hyun-woo witnessed a gang fight at a hotel. While helping an injured grandmother and her granddaughter, he saw Ji-hwan with a bloodied bat. Okay, it does make him seem like a barbaric brute, but are we perhaps being misled by a partial perspective? Something tells me there's more to the story than the prosecutor knows. Yoon-ha seems to think so too, as she completely ignores his warnings. When dropped off at her old apartment, she simply turns around and heads back to Ji-hwan's house. After all, her belongings are there. The problem is, Ji-hwan himself has started doubting if he can live a normal life after what he heard. After all, his enemies are indeed dangerous. Feeling downcast, he doesn't even ask why the prosecutor showed up. He assumes it's strange for her to associate with an unreliable ex-criminal. Thinking she'll be safer alone than under his roof, Ji-hwan doesn't stop her from leaving. He's only shaken when she tells him her real name, Go Yoon-ha, as until now, he'd only known her by her stage name. There's something in his gaze that anyone can see, but he keeps up his cold facade and lets her go. Not that she escapes the mob circle, as she accidentally stumbles upon one of Ji-hwan's employees, the marketing manager, at a public sauna where she planned to spend the night. The guy, acting impulsively, used the boss's stamp to sign an advertising contract with the famous Kang Ye-na, thinking it was the best move for the company. The issue? He did it without Ji-hwan's permission, and sneaking out in the middle of the night causes some chaos. First, our chaotic duo bumps into some guys eager for a fight. Their skins are saved only because Ji-hwan was on his way to deal with the runaway employee. With his mere presence, he rescues both the damsel and the employee. But here's the second and worst problem: a breach of trust. Even with good intentions, his employee repeated an old crime: fraud. Too disappointed to forgive him just yet, the boss sends him on leave. With Yoon-ha, however, it's different. She returns home with Ji-hwan because, within an hour, he retracts his words. Being alone on the streets seems far more dangerous. In exchange for staying in a beautiful, comfortable house with free meals and rent, she insists on contributing somehow. The solution comes in the form of her becoming a home tutor for the ex-convicts, helping them prepare for their high school equivalency test. Although most of them grumble, they have no choice but to get used to her presence. Yoon-ha has a long road ahead to win their trust. But who doubts she'll go from being disliked to becoming their cherished protector? At least she won't have any trouble with Ji-hwan, who is already completely smitten with her. In one evening alone, they fall victim to a cupid bug, prompting intimate face-touching moments. Later, they end up pressed together against a tree. Mistaken for an intruder, no heart could resist the palpitations from such a close encounter. Feeling so at ease, Yoon-ha shares how she spent happy moments with someone special in that yard and even says she's glad it's Ji-hwan living there now. Overjoyed by this growing closeness, Ji-hwan doesn't even realize he's adorably stroking her head out of nowhere the next morning. After seeing firsthand how Ji-hwan is conscientious and instills honest values in his employees, Yoon-ha acts as a mediator, helping the estranged employee make amends with the big family, promising that the mistake will never be repeated. To celebrate his return, a welcome party is planned by the more affectionate employees, where Yoon-ha easily fits in, making everyone feel comfortable, from personal introductions to drinking games. Absolutely nothing escapes Ji-hwan, who needs to know every little thing she likes and dislikes. And of course, he takes the opportunity to admire her smile. When the night ends, he can't resist being drawn to Yoon-ha. In the yard, she playfully teases him, wanting to gaze deeply into his shiny, sparkling eyes. Then, the alcohol takes its toll, and she literally falls mouth first onto Ji-hwan's lips, leaving him wide-eyed and stunned. Since Yoon-ha isn't the kind of drunk to forget, she remembers exactly what happened the next morning. If she could, she'd merge with the blanket just to avoid facing the handsome man across the hallway, who by the way is having heart palpitations of joy. To avoid dying of embarrassment, Yoon-ha pretends to forget. But this only leads them to believe the other regrets the kiss, and the snowball of misunderstandings grows ever larger. The first misunderstanding arises when Ji-hwan overhears Yoon-ha joking with the other guys, describing him as a bully with broad shoulders. Hearing this, he becomes depressed, believing she only sees him as a thug. Realizing he's upset, Yoon-ha explains that it was just a joke, and that she was actually complimenting his attractive shoulders. Upon learning this, Ji-hwan instantly shifts from being gloomy to a gym rat, and no amount of weight on the machine can satisfy his newfound determination to broaden those shoulders further. Now, with Ji-hwan's confidence renewed and his muscles chiseled, Yoon-ha will have to hold herself back from the free show of his physique. But she's not exempt from her own dramatic misunderstandings. Instead of focusing on her studies, she overhears the employees discussing how Ji-hwan took care of Yena when she had an allergic reaction after eating a sausage during a press conference. Just like a quarrelsome married couple arguing over daily misunderstandings, Ji-hwan comes home from work to find a passive-aggressive Yoon-ha brimming with jealousy. He painstakingly explains every detail of what happened, assuring her that he has already dismissed Yena. Professionally, of course, because there's no way she can demand special contract clauses when she can't even eat the product she's endorsing. Meanwhile, let's not forget there's still a certain prosecutor in this story. During this time, Yoon-ha and Hyun-yu continue meeting as she tries to figure out if he's her childhood friend. Everything points to yes, but sometimes it feels like the screenwriter is toying with us. While they share similarities, it could all be a coincidence, especially since Hyun-yu never gives any real indications that he's the person she's looking for. He always seems lost, as if he hasn't lived through the experiences she recounts. The truth is, she's stuck in this lukewarm love triangle that doesn't seem to be working. Anyone can see that Hyun-yu is far behind in winning her heart. Even in a classic romantic moment, like fastening her seatbelt in the car, he loses to an imaginary Ji-hwan in the back seat, disapproving of his feeble attempt. The rest of their outing is a disaster as well, with every famous restaurant Hyun-yu picks being closed. By the time they finally sit by the roadside, it's already time to head back. In other words, just accept that he's already lost. Even if he turns out to be her childhood superhero, Yoon-ha doesn't seem to be looking for her first love. She's simply seeking reassurance that her friend is alive. After all, they parted ways terribly. A strange man cornered them. And to protect her, the boy confronted the suspect alone and disappeared. It seems that she just wants the relief of knowing her friend is okay. But seriously, could that sweet boy who comforted Yoon-ha during her childhood really have grown into this tiresome man obsessed with Ji-hwan, constantly insisting he's a dangerous monster with ulterior motives? His obsession has reached the point where it's making Yoon-ha uncomfortable whenever the topic comes up. Putting the two men face to face to settle things doesn't help either. No matter what Ji-hwan says, the prosecutor refuses to believe he's a good person. Honestly, let's just move on, because even I'm fed up with this guy showing up on screen with the same tired complaints. If there's still a barrier between our YouTuber and our mobster, it will soon be broken, or rather, melted. The next morning's alarm is a siren. Naturally, Yoon-ha is terrified to see the residents running around in a frenzy. When the grumpy boss yells, "Everyone to the car!" she takes it very seriously. The men realize too late that there's an intruder in the van, and since they can't just leave her in the middle of the road, she spends the entire ride imagining the worst scenarios of a bloody gang fight. Yes, they're headed to a slaughterhouse, but for animals, not people. They're there to personally resolve a meat supply issue. Amid the chaos of the butcher shop, Yoon-ha is mistaken for an employee and tasked with labeling trays. The more packages that roll down the conveyor belt, the more she learns about Ji-hwan through the other workers, who practically worship him. Without him, some former inmates would never have had the chance to find work after being released, like a woman who killed her abusive husband to protect her daughter and now leads a dignified life thanks to him. Bit by bit, Yoon-ha shreds the last remnants of her prejudice, truly believing that Ji-hwan is tough on the outside, but soft on the inside, just as everyone says. To confirm this, she gets a personal demonstration of his generosity, albeit in an almost deadly way. Even the employees have noticed their boss has feelings for Yoon-ha, and one of them decides to play matchmaker to thaw his heart and spark a romance. However, locking the two of them inside a freezer doesn't seem like the best idea, does it? Not even the broadest shoulders in the world can open the door. With nothing to do but wait for someone to rescue them, Yoon-ha talks to Ji-hwan, confessing that she's changed her perspective. After everything she's learned, she's discovered an admirable side of him, and that's all the sensitive mobster needed to hear. Being praised by someone genuinely good allows him to finally start believing in his own worth. Just as she feels he's a good person, Yoon-ha also feels cold, very cold. After all, it's minus 18 degrees Celsius in there. What a crazy idea. The two are literally freezing, and not even Ji-hwan's gentlemanly gesture of lending her his jacket helps much. So he timidly asks for permission to act like penguins, huddling together for warmth in cold winters, hoping their shared body heat will help them survive a bit longer. Even as they're nearly turning blue from hypothermia, this near-death experience somehow manages to be utterly adorable. That big embrace is enough to keep her conscious at least. Thankfully, before it's too late, the Cupid outside finds the lost key and unlocks the freezer, freeing them from this risky romantic setup. So Ji-hwan takes his frozen sleeping beauty straight to the hospital. Fortunately, the cold didn't freeze her brain. When she wakes up to see her penguin man worried sick, Yoon-ha asks why he's being so kind to her. Before Ji-hwan can say a word, a pile of curious eavesdroppers tumbles into the room. They'd been spying on the couple from behind the door. They're filled with guilt and regret, and Yoon-ha does her best to smooth things over, defending them like a mother protecting her mischievous kids from a deserved scolding by their father. Deep down, she knows their concern means she's important to him. The more time she spends in the hospital, the more it becomes clear to her how different he is. Ji-hwan even wrote a ridiculously long list of things she might need for just one night in the hospital. A man more attentive than this is impossible to find. Not even Yeonu's visit, where he mistakenly believed she was hospitalized for hemorrhoids, thanks to an excuse Miho made up to avoid explaining Yoon-ha's near-popsicle status, can top this. When Yeonu enters and sees Ji-hwan dozing off in the chair while waiting for Yoon-ha, a warm feeling starts to grow in her chest that's becoming harder to ignore. As an always alert ex-mobster, Ji-hwan doesn't actually sleep. After just resting his eyes, Yoon-ha insists he gets treatment too. After all, she wasn't the only one who nearly froze to death. While replenishing his nutrients, Ji-hwan overcomes his struggles to open up and shares that in his entire life, he's only ever grown close to one lonely person. But they lost contact. Interesting. Doesn't this sound like someone we know? But they aren't the only ones embarking on a romantic adventure. Meanwhile, a second couple seems to be forming. Yoon-ha's friend Miho and lawyer Il-young. It all began with a hair care session at her salon, which extended into casual conversations over meals, followed by an afternoon of accidental touches, while helping Yoon-ha temporarily move out. Miho, who had promised to drop-kick anyone who acted suspiciously in the house full of men living with her best friend, probably didn't expect to end up in bed with a tall, handsome, and charming lawyer after a bucket of water drenched them in the street. This couple deserves applause for generating so much chemistry in just a few seconds. But after their intense moment, things get awkward. When they meet at the hospital to visit Yoonha, they're both incredibly embarrassed. To make matters worse, Il-young utters the forbidden K-drama words. That night was a mistake. Congratulations, my friend. You just ruined everything. Now they'll pretend nothing happened, even if she has to reject a much-needed relaxing massage after sleeping all twisted up on a hospital bench to avoid intruding on the penguins in the room. The car ride home, however, is unavoidable, as is running into Miho's father at the door, eager to know who's bringing his daughter home. A few explanations are given interrogation style, but since it's too early to maintain this stern facade, a hearty meal with matchmaking parents seems much better. Even better is our penguin couple, who already act like newlyweds when they return home. Washing dishes together, accidentally splashing soap in each other's eyes, and standing so close they can practically see into each other's souls. But as always, the house's nosy inhabitants, lacking any sense of tact, interrupt the romance. Since kisses are off the table for now, Yoonha spends her free time tearing up Ji-hwan's yard, unsuccessfully searching for the time capsule she buried years ago with her childhood friend. The homeowner himself ends up helping her, ensuring the lawn doesn't get any more damaged. Just like us, Hyunwoo seems determined to unravel the mystery of Yoonha's childhood friend. Using his skills as a prosecutor, he finally uncovers the truth. But what bad luck for him. Among the 13 Hyunwoos he finds by analyzing old property records, none of them could be him. The surprise is even greater when he discovers that the childhood superhero was much closer all along. It's Ji-hwan himself, who used to be named Hyunwoo, before legally changing his name after falling under the custody of his cruel mobster father. Even though fate has worked to reunite these two people with such a deep and ancient bond, nothing will be easy. Ji-hwan still carries a shield to protect himself from the scars of his past. He was just a smiling little boy forced to abandon his dreams because of his father. Although he stayed true to his essence, even reporting his father to the police, sending him to prison, and transforming the gang into an honest business, Ji-hwan is no longer the Hyunwoo of her memories. That's why he doesn't reveal the truth to Yoonha. As he says, for some people, confronting the past is painful. It's better to leave certain memories buried. Besides, there's a sliver of fear that Yoonha might be disappointed in who he's become. But Ji-hwan doesn't have much time to dwell on this, because it's time to rescue the missing employee. Beaten and held hostage by the Kittens gang, the man is being used as a bargaining chip in a high-stakes drug deal. With his life at risk, Ji-hwan has to act quickly. Clearly, the plan has everything to go wrong, especially since he intends to face the enemy alone. But that's not how it's going to be. Il-young, who admires him immensely, wouldn't abandon him. With some persuasion, Il-young convinces the boss to at least accept backup from the brave team. Little do they know there's another special addition to their rescue squad. Who can stand against 4 ex-convicts and a children's YouTuber in a van, tracking Ji-hwan's location via a dating app? Absolutely no one. The operation goes more or less as expected. Ji-hwan captures the leader of the Kittens, allowing Il-young to rescue the missing employee and get him to safety. However, it wasn't part of the plan for our mobster to be hit by a car, tied up, and beaten. Ji-hwan only regains his inner strength when his rival mentions Yoonha, and his eyes say it all. Touch even one finger on her, and I'll kill you. Fortunately, the police arrive before things escalate further, as Ji-hwan had reported everything before launching his attack. Though he leaves in handcuffs, to the dismay of the rescue team led by Yoonha, who have just arrived, at least most of the Kittens gang members are arrested as well. Now, Hyunwoo finally has Ji-hwan exactly where he's wanted him for so long, at the interrogation table. However, he's in for a rude awakening when he starts considering the possibility that Ji-hwan isn't the monster he thought. After all, a dangerous man wouldn't go to such lengths to save mistreated employees, willingly turn himself in to give a statement, or provide tips on the locations of criminals and drugs, things the prosecution would never have uncovered without his help. But why focus on the case when he can shift to the topic of Yoonha, right? Since Ji-hwan stubbornly ignores his past and plans to keep it that way, both men agree not to reveal who Yoonha's real childhood friend is. And with that, here we go breaking our hearts again. It hurts more than expected to see Yoonha crying outside the police station, completely attached, only to be ignored when Ji-hwan is released. All Ji-hwan wants is to protect her, especially now that the dangerous rival has escaped and is on the loose targeting her. But did he really have to say she's just a common tenant and nothing more? She doesn't understand why he's treating her this way, and says she'd be worried even if it were a stranger returning home injured. When she turns her back, his expression reveals the profound sadness he's feeling, but he believes it's necessary to keep her safe. At least Yoonha has the whole team on her side, including the grumpy one, who joins forces with his rat to give the boss the cold shoulder he deserves as revenge. But there's no denying that this stern-faced man has the softest heart of all. He visits his hospitalized employee and reunites him with his little sister, bringing their small family together, a family that only has each other to survive in this tough world. When Yoonha and her time capsule meet with Hyunwoo, and after countless failed attempts to ask directly if he's her childhood friend, he finally gives a definitive answer. What exactly came out of his mouth, we don't know yet, but it was enough for her to return home and tell Ji-hwan goodbye, declaring they should never see each other again. We discovered that the prosecutor, in fact, told her the truth, revealing that he is not the Hyunwoo she is looking for, but that he could disclose where the real one is if she wanted. The surprising part was hearing her decline, thanks to Ji-hwan's advice about not digging up painful memories. For now, she is content just knowing that her childhood friend is alive and doing well in life. In the end, she decided to leave the gangster's house not because of the past, but because she can't handle her racing heart for this man, while she believes he only sees her as a nosy tenant. Which everyone knows is a big fallacy. After all, everyone can see that Ji-hwan is deeply in love with her, but he acts all tough, merely accepting her decision. The truth is, he is very worried because of the dangerous enemies on his trail. Besides the leader of the kittens, we can add another to this list, his own father, the leader of the bulldogs, who has been released and is very resentful for being ratted out by his own son. Yoonha, however, is unaware of all this. So she continues her life, including her commitment to her students. Renting books isn't the only kind gesture she does for them. She also stands up for them against snobby teenagers who belittle them. The more time they spend with her, the more attached they become to their teacher, wanting to promote her to sister-in-law. And for that, their efforts must be redoubled. It's very amusing to watch these four grown men plotting ways to help the couple overcome this temporary separation. The best way to give them a little push, a jealousy avalanche. And before you know it, he teleports to the lobby, on the verge of a nervous rash upon hearing the overly cheerful date. His thunderous way of interrupting the conversation didn't seem very appropriate. Of course, once again, he gets caught in a completely wrong situation with Yana, the woman who seems like sticky glue to him. Her intention is to get closer to him, but in the end, she only annoys him. Even promoting the Thirsty Deer's sausage and helping boost sales isn't enough to catch Ji-hwan's attention. When he gets home, the friend's Cupid operation turns into a real fiasco because the romantic targets decide to open the court of trivial causes. They nitpick over the most trivial reasons in the universe. Seriously, the most insignificant ones ever. Who argues about the position of the shower head after a bath or the acceptable volume for closing a door? Only them. That seems like an overwhelming desire to end the tension with a kiss, but they just don't know how to express themselves. And in the midst of it, the jealousy only grows as the prosecutor continues orbiting around Yoonha. At least he's gradually letting go of his prejudices and starting to accept the possibility that Ji-hwan might not be a bad guy. Besides his own investigations, Hyunwoo finds a witness to the supposed gang fight from 10 years ago, back at the hotel where his grudge was born. But the girl clarifies that there was more to the incident than met the eye. Back then, Young-hee didn't like being cast aside after years of working as Ji-hwan's father's right-hand man. So he and his newly formed kittens gang cornered Ji-hwan in a vengeful trap. Surrounded by several enemies, even showing himself to be an excellent fighter, our protagonist took many hits and ended up badly injured, though thankfully alive. All along, Ji-hwan was also a victim. And it's the girl who lost her grandmother that day who says so. Only after going through her mourning did she realize that the guy didn't know innocence would get hurt. He was also caught completely off guard. And when she tells Hyunwoo that she has been receiving financial support from Ji-hwan for her studies ever since, he is forced to admit that this ex-gangster might actually be a good person. So good, in fact, that he's already beginning his search at several real estate agencies for the perfect, airy, and safe place for Eun-ha to move into. Let's pretend we believe his excuse that he's doing all this just because he wants to help his employees as much as possible, and not because he would throw himself in front of a train for her. In this case, he might have to dive into a bucket of sugar water to calm himself down as soon as he hears about Eun-ha getting into trouble. Who needs gangs when she herself gets into danger, right? Okay, running from angry teenagers is slightly less lethal, but it's good not to underestimate them. Ji-hwan can confirm this, having spent all his energy running to his beloved only to end up hiding behind a patrol car when he arrives at the station and sees that Eun-ha already has company. Yes, Hyunwoo got there first. To avoid making a fool of himself, he hides before being caught in the act. And instead of expressing his worry, when Eun-ha asks why he called 20 times, he just omits everything, as if his sad eyes don't give it all away. He might be brave about many things, but when it comes to his feelings for Eun-ha, he's the most cowardly man in the world. Even when Eun-ha says she's gotten used to everyone and that living alone again will feel strange, he doesn't make a move. So, confused and unmotivated, all she can do is move forward with signing the lease for a small, not-so-safe house that would drive him to a psychotic break if he found out about it. But since he keeps his mouth shut, there's not much that can be done, right? Or is there? At the last minute, he regrets it and chases after his Eun-ha. But as always, someone else got there first. Hyunwoo, who, unlike Ji-hwan, wastes no time, confessing his feelings for her loud and clear for anyone to hear. However, as quick as that confession was, Eun-ha pulls away the moment she sees Ji-hwan. And since he can't seem to use more than 2 brain cells at a time when it comes to his beloved, he focuses solely on finding an excuse to get her out of there. And he did it. But not without making a fool of himself. Who in their right mind says it's official cleaning day, and, as an unbreakable rule, she must return home and participate? Yep, that's exactly what he says. And believe it or not, she falls for this needy bulldog's lame excuse. But instead of heading to some non-existent deep cleaning session, other plans are in store. That's because Il-young rubs salt in Mr. Melodramatic's wounds. Don't they say you're a gangster? Then why are you letting someone else steal your thunder in the romance department? Go and make it happen, boss. To avoid endless nights of tossing and turning, reinforcements are called in. Everyone agrees. A dubious plan from 5 Cupids is better than leaving the couple to take an eternity to figure things out on their own. This time, the mission involves a change of scenery and perhaps a brief friendly kidnapping. Why not? Miho and Eun-ha, already stressed out by the indecisive men in their lives, are in for a surprise when they go to pick up the moving boxes. Suddenly, they're abducted and thrown into a van. The plan? A pleasant getaway in the mountains, where the wooded atmosphere would show the penguin couple they're made for each other. But the result is chaos and an awful tension, because now we have 2 uneasy couples avoiding eye contact. No one knows that Miho and Il-young had a one-night stand, but she remembers very well how she was treated. No wonder, just days ago, she put him in his place, saying she wasn't interested in cowards who call a night of love a mistake. And he definitely deserved to hear that. After all, the guy has countless romantic tips for his boss, but when it comes to his own love life, he can't put any of it into practice. And the fact that Miho feels nauseous about absolutely everything while carrying an unopened pregnancy test in her pocket doesn't help the awkward situation. While Miho's displeasure is glaringly obvious, Eun-ha is a bit subtler, ignoring Ji-hwan's attempts to make peace through edible means. Poor guy, even the speed bumps seem to be conspiring against him. It wasn't his intention to toss a piece of fruit in her face, but it happened. When they arrive at the charming little house, Eun-ha decides to take a walk to clear her mind. But Ji-hwan has no intention of keeping his distance. Even more so when she doesn't return after an hour, paranoia kicks in. Ji-hwan remembers seeing a suspicious man near the exit of the house. So the whole group splits up to search for Yoonha. As it turns out, she was perfectly fine, peacefully exploring the area, until she spots a panicked ex-gangster running toward her as if a meteor were about to crash down. In the end, it's Ji-hwan who falls, and the two tumble down a hill, ultimately landing tangled together, breathless and on the verge of confessions. In his frantic worry, Ji-hwan accidentally blurts out that he likes her. There's no use trying to play it off afterward, because Yoonha heard it loud and clear. He stammers through his confession again, melting our hearts, but once he gains confidence, he repeats it endlessly. I like you so much. Only you. Now, being carried on Ji-hwan's back because of her twisted ankle, Yoonha gets the best of both worlds. The actions that made her fall for him, and the certainty of his spoken words. And since letting things happen naturally isn't an option, because with him, nothing would ever happen, it's up to her to take the initiative. That's how a bold woman does it. She admits her feelings and plants a quick kiss on him, just enough to leave Ji-hwan completely undone. Composure, balance, consciousness, gone. It's hilarious to see him utterly flustered while still trying his best to carry her, but in the end, he pulls himself together, and the two enjoy a lovely stroll home. After the kiss, Ji-hwan's feelings for her grow even stronger. Even though he feels jealous of anyone touching Yoonha or feeding her, it's useless trying to stay in her sights, because every time she looks back at him, he freezes. It's uncontrollable. His eyes dart to her lips, and he can't recall the kiss without having an electrifying heart attack. The man is so drawn to her that he doesn't know how to act, whether to stay and control himself or flee and hide. Fortunately, Yoonha now seems fully aware of how Ji-hwan is when it comes to emotions, and she knows exactly how to read his peculiar signs of affection. Even better, she uses this to her advantage, turning him into jelly by sending mushy videos and calling him those overly sweet nicknames that you either love or hate. With all this romantic atmosphere, it's time for Yoonha to give Hyunwoo an answer. After all, he confessed his feelings earlier, and she can't leave the poor guy hanging forever, right? Unfortunately for him, after a round of dinner, ice cream, and a nighttime walk, Yoonha kindly rejects him as gently as she can. She explains that she doesn't feel the same way and cannot return his feelings. Of course, he's disappointed, but he tells her not to distance herself. She can call him anytime she needs a prosecutor on standby, as he accepts her decision and will move on. After Hyunwoo's show of maturity, he might have deserved at least a hug, but for Yoonha, a handshake was more than enough. Even so, when Ji-hwan sees the scene, the man practically transforms into a volleyball player, blocking the contact. Ji-hwan has finally stopped being so passive in this relationship. As soon as they enter the house, he takes the initiative, because a kiss definitely says more than all the embarrassing words his messy mind can muster. The next morning, Yoonha wakes up to sunflowers that light up her face with a smile. Of course, this was Ji-hwan's doing. Or should we start calling him the most vain man in the world? Perfectly styled hair, the best cologne, and carefully chosen outfits are now requirements for this new romantic phase, full of soap bubbles and rainbows. Our penguins are the most radiant couple on a Tuesday, and the Cupids can vouch for it, nearly burning their retinas from the glowing, happy aura they emit. Half of them are even wondering why they're watching a live K-drama scene at home first thing in the morning. Even though Ji-hwan is all romantic, attentive, and a grinning idiot in public, and Yoonha responds with every variation of heart emojis imaginable, surprisingly, not all the boys realize there's now an officially in love couple in their midst. This couple, by the way, has a hard time heading to work because for Ji-hwan, holding Yoonha's hand for an hour still isn't enough to satisfy his uncontrollable lovesickness. Wait, did I say work? He uses his office time to look up the best places for their next date. But not for long. Suffering from baby withdrawal, he sneaks out to go see her. And he couldn't have picked a better moment. Yoonha was feeling frustrated after being rejected for new jobs, as agencies seem to care only about numbers rather than the connection she creates with her audience. So she decides to innovate, launching a solo career as an independent content creator on her own channel. She stocks up on materials for her upcoming videos, and now that Ji-hwan is there, She has someone to help carry her bags and share a fun afternoon in a relationship where the biggest worry is choosing the best tiger ear headband. Who would have thought Ji Hwan would also be a child charmer? This time, he's not scaring the little ones but distracting them from their fear of the dark when the shopping mall lights go out. With a shadow puppet show, he shines in everyone's eyes, including Yoonha's, who remembers her childhood friend doing the same thing. On the way home, she shares this memory with Ji Hwan, but it's still not the right moment for him to take the hint and reveal that he is that special person from her past. It's an emotional moment as Yoonha confesses that her childhood friendship inspired her career, creating happy memories for children. Ji Hwan indirectly admits that this friendship kept him strong during difficult times. While this couple speeds ahead at full throttle, another certain pair seems to be running on fumes. During a quick apartment meeting, Il-young notices the pregnancy test on the table and immediately pieces together Miho's strange behavior during the trip on kidnapping. Nothing escapes his sharp eyes. He noticed Miho refusing food in a nauseous and anxious manner and searching for something in the van. Considering he's likely the only one who had intense nighttime activities with her, Il-young knows very well that the object in question isn't a COVID test, as everyone assumes, but rather a positive pregnancy test. For a while, the lawyer decides to ignore everything completely while figuring out what to do. To make matters worse, Miho discovers that Il-young dislikes relationships and doesn't even think about building a family because he's never had one, being an orphan. Definitely not something a pregnant woman wants to hear about the father of her baby, right? When he finally musters the courage to say he wants to be more than a friend, it's Miho who is left confused. But he doesn't help matters, knowing he's made countless mistakes yet failing to properly apologize for any of them. Now he'll have to make up for it, whether it's by showing up drunk at her house with bags full of healthy groceries or not. His magnetic presence alone already seduces her, but that won't be enough to regain her trust, which has been deeply shaken. He almost makes progress when he falls onto the bed with Miho, slurring drunken yet heartfelt words about wanting to share everything with her. But whatever progress he makes is undone when he runs off the next morning. In the following days, he attempts an over-the-top reconciliation, like gifting his car to her parents. This excessive behavior irritates Miho, especially when he meets her parents and casually looks at her childhood photos as if it's no big deal. Yet he insists he won't give up until she accepts him. Though Miho is shaken, her insecurity still looms large. After all, she doesn't know how he'll react to the pregnancy. If only he would confess that he already knows, they could resolve this whole situation much more smoothly. Back to the penguin couple. If Ji Hwan seemed calm and mature a little while ago, that all vanishes the moment Yoonha posts her first video. He wants to be the first to watch. So cute. But as he struggles to find the perfect words, painstakingly typing out an impeccable comment, Hyunyu swoops in and posts a long essay before him. It's hilarious to watch the two men compete for the title of Yoonha's #1 fan. Since Ji Hwan missed being the first to comment, there's no way he'll let himself write less. Thus, the two grown men, using their respective usernames, Emperor Penguin and Justice, fill the comment section of a children's video, practically starting a war. One takes a rational approach, writing about the metamorphosis of an insect, while the other pours out emotional praise for Yoonha as a whole. Honestly, shouldn't Hyunyu be channeling that energy into moving on from his crush? Because, despite what he said after Yoonha rejected him, he clearly hasn't taken it well. Due to the day-to-day coincidences of life, they keep running into each other, even in inappropriate places like Ji Hwan's house. When the two finally meet face-to-face, Hyunyu tells Ji Hwan he hasn't given up on Yoonha, and he won't be the only obstacle, as Yena continues to appear, irritatingly clinging to the past and insisting that she owes her life to Ji Hwan, her savior. So why does she act as if he owes her a date or something instead of just leaving him alone? Especially when he already has so much to deal with. And of course, I'm talking about his loser crisis in the comment battle. Ji Hwan simply shut down, as if someone had removed his battery. But he quickly gets recharged when jealousy kicks in. All it takes is a human being with a tad more testosterone approaching Yoonha, and Ji Hwan is pulling out chairs, clinging to her, and leaving everyone at dinner stunned. It's incredibly satisfying to see him setting boundaries and standing up for Yunha against Yena's snobbish, disdainful remarks. She speaks as if Yunha needs permission to do anything with her own career, and even has the audacity to say that she's better for Jihwan because she's known him longer. The funny thing is, she doesn't realize she's over 20 years too late. Fortunately, Yunha isn't fazed at all because she trusts her boyfriend's feelings. However, those two clueless individuals are the least of their problems because the leader of the Kittens gang is prowling, ready to bear his claws. Yang He has been dismissed as insignificant ever since Jihwan's father was released. But instead of rebelling against the boss, he decides all his problems are Jihwan's fault. And the worst way to get revenge? Target your opponent's weakness, namely, the people he loves. That's why Yang He approaches Eunha while she's working, but Jihwan, always vigilant, shows up to defend her, trembling with rage at his rival's cynical provocations. The problem is that, from Eunha's perspective, her boyfriend's behavior seems excessively aggressive and unwarranted, as if he's attacking a man out of sheer jealousy, which scares her. To make matters worse, he tells her to quit her job without offering any explanation, saying it's unsafe. Naturally, this irritates her. Even though she senses the tension, things need to be resolved through conversation. He can't just act overly protective and controlling without explaining anything to her. As a result, the couple who had their romance in high gear now hits the brakes. It's up to Jihwan to ensure this chilly atmosphere doesn't last. After all, the Cupids can't do everything, can they? At most, they can make funny comments to diffuse the awkwardness. Jihwan takes the opportunity to apologize after grabbing a spice jar from a high shelf for her. And how could she not forgive a man who skipped work just to deliver her an apple? He finally explains the severity of the dangerous relationship he has with the rival Gangster. With this, the penguins return to loving each other intensely, with Eunha showing off her self-defense moves, which look more like heart-stealing moves to us. To show that he believes in Eunha's potential, because starting from scratch is perfectly normal, Jihwan and the Cupids joined forces for the Art Attack mission and set up a complete recording studio for her. With the best equipment, the best backdrops, and the best materials because, after all, she's already part of the family. The adorable couple just needs to be mindful of what they do under the sheets in a kid-friendly environment, right? Of course, sooner or later, their physical attraction was bound to grow. And for the first time in a rare moment, they have the entire house to themselves for the mood to ignite. But the only things that almost ignite are Jihwan's muscles while he cooks, flexing to make his arms look sexy, and his heart, because he doesn't know how to handle Eunha's shy yet provocative seduction. And guess what? He passed out again. But that's okay. They need to go through this boiling over phase because of a simple accidental foot touch before they can someday move on to more intimate aspects. Maybe watching kissing scenes on TV will ignite their kissable passion. And yes, everything was heading in the right direction on the couch, until Il-young showed up at the worst moment and ruined our victory. Eunha and the Cupids unite for a special mission, volunteering at an orphanage. At first, the boys worry that a blue elephant costume might be too scary for the little ones, but with Eunha's encouragement, everyone has a blast in their outfits. Because, let's be honest, they're also just big kids at heart. While they're having fun, we see Yena being clingy as usual. But this time, Jihwan puts an end to her hopes clearly and definitively, telling her that Eunha has been the only woman for him, long before Yena even knew him. Now, Jihwan feels ready to visit his family and admire how everyone is on a good path, only to tug at our heartstrings with this beautiful scene. It leads Jihwan to conclude that hiding his past from Eunha isn't protecting her. Sharing the unpleasant parts will help break down the walls that exist and only fuel misunderstandings. So, he opens up about his complicated history. As a child, he was kidnapped by his father's henchmen, who wanted to monitor the only son to groom him as an heir. At that time, young Jihwan wasn't forced to live with his father, but years later, he painfully learned just how dangerous the man was. Unfortunately, his mother became very ill, and to pay for her hospital bills, Jihwan essentially sold his life, his youth, and his innocence. After his mother passed away, as a lone teenager, He had no choice but to remain under his father's control, not out of familial ties, but as a debtor. Although Ji-hwan doesn't go into detail about the bad things he did for the gang, he admits it was his own choice, so he must take responsibility for it. But Yoon-ha doesn't let him dwell in sadness for long, reminding him that he is a completely different person now, and she admires this new Ji-hwan who strives to be a good example for everyone. All that's left is for his gangster father to let him walk this path, right? Which leaves us anxious because it seems unlikely to happen. The man definitely doesn't make things easy. The boss has been spying on his son and hates seeing him live a happy, normal life. We're talking about a man who left prison even richer and more powerful, to the point of managing to kick Han-yu off his own investigation by bribing the Attorney General to benefit the gangsters, who didn't even stay locked up for a week. So of course, when a man breaks into the building, we're scared for Yoon-ha. However, he's not after her, but the youngest of the thirsty deer, because of a crime he committed. To understand what's happening, let's break it down. Back in high school, the boy had a girlfriend. While sneaking away on her birthday to go to the beach, he got distracted, and they had an accident. Unfortunately, the blow she suffered was fatal, and since then, the guilt and trauma have never left him. Despite serving a harsh sentence in prison, once released, he has been pursued by the victim's brother, who, consumed by grief, refuses to let the young man move on without facing relentless justice. That's why, when Ji-hwan understands the situation, he lets his guard down and doesn't hesitate to kneel and beg for forgiveness on behalf of his employee, because he understands the family's pain. It's a complicated situation on all sides. We recognize the grief of the victims who lost a loved one, but we also know the crime wasn't intentional. It was a tragic accident. Even so, the youngest member, overwhelmed by remorse, is willing to resign and give up his happiness if that's what the grieving family desires. In the end, it's bittersweet, because this isn't the first time Ji-hwan has been in a position where he has to apologize on behalf of his workers, taking on a role far beyond that of a boss, something almost indescribable. But his loyalty in defending them and sharing their burdens is noble and deeply moving. This is evident to the victim's mother, who, with a touch of compassion, releases the weight from the young man's shoulders, and to Hyun-woo, who, as the family's lawyer, witnesses Ji-hwan's golden heart and the unity of the thirsty deer. Seeing them all together as a deeply supportive family, the prosecutor openly admits he was wrong to harbor prejudice. After the direct confrontation with Yang-hee and confirming that Yoon-ha is a target, we witness something that once seemed impossible: Ji-hwan and Hyun-yu joining forces. They set aside their differences and agree to take down their enemies together for Yoon-ha's sake. After the chaotic day, our couple takes a stroll through the neighborhood. To release his frustrations, Yoon-ha suggests he scream out all his problems for the world to hear. Too shy for that, he lets her do the venting for him. It's all fun and games, waking up the neighbors until her hair comes loose. With remarkable ease, Ji-hwan ties it up for her and compliments her with a phrase her childhood friend used to say: "You look so beautiful, my Yoon-ha." At that moment, her heart nearly melts, becoming impossibly soft. The similarities between Ji-hwan and her childhood friend are so uncanny that they almost seem like the same person, don't they? Yoon-ha knows she won't find peace until she gets to the bottom of this. So, she seeks out the only person who knows the truth, the prosecutor, and he confirms it. Ji-hwan is the one she has been searching for all these years. Suddenly, everything makes sense. And since she promised as a child to find him wherever he might be, that's exactly what she does. When they meet, Yoon-ha's face is already drenched with tears, blurring her vision. Ji-hwan's initial stunned silence quickly transforms into understanding and comfort as she apologizes for not recognizing him, admitting that she has leaned on a single person her entire life. It didn't matter if the name was Ji-hwan or Hyun-woo. It was always him. When she confesses how much she missed him, Ji-hwan's eyes overflow with affection, and he hugs her tightly, echoing her words. After this intense emotional wave, he also apologizes for not saying goodbye in the past. He explains that he didn't reveal his identity earlier because he feared she would be disappointed in the person he had become. Finally, Yoon-ha brushes that thought aside for good. She couldn't be prouder of who he is now. Their first night together ends innocently, with both of them falling asleep while sitting up. By morning, they share a special breakfast prepared by Yunha. And if Ji-hwan's stomach is bubbling with love, his cheeks are burning with embarrassment when he's caught sneaking out of her room. Ji-hwan must brace himself because his friends can't resist making double entendre jokes to embarrass their now romantic boss. Lucky for him, the topic shifts quickly to something equally shocking for everyone. Il-young is getting married. What? What's going on? That's right, so much has happened that the secondary couple's antics took a back seat. But let's catch up. A few days ago, Miho was walking along the sidewalk when she tripped, and Il-young panicked because a pregnant woman can't have an accident during her pregnancy. That's how he let it slip, that he already knew what she had been hiding. Left with no choice, they finally had a heartfelt conversation and reconciled in their usual rushed and quirky way. In the end, they decided to commit to each other, not out of obligation, but by choice. Although Il-young had never imagined starting a family, Miho awakened that desire in him. However, not everyone is thrilled about becoming a first-time grandparent. Miho's family is shocked, and just one look at her father is enough to see that he radiates disapproval of the marriage. When Ji-hwan gathers a bunch of gifts and shows up at the future grandparent's house to give moral support to his employee and prove that he's hardworking, kind, and honest, the in-laws are impressed. Now we can prepare for an uncle who can't handle his drinks and others who are already excited about the baby on the way. All this wedding talk makes Yunha start thinking about it too. Not that she's in a hurry to drag Ji-hwan to the altar, but for now, she's just testing the waters. Maybe it would have been better to stay in the dark because when he says he plans to wait for all the thirsty deer to get married before even considering a ring, Yunha feels particularly offended. The party celebrating her 10,000 subscribers seems like a great way to move past the awkward tension. But even that proves challenging. Ji-hwan is undoubtedly the happiest, but all Yunha can think when she looks at him is that her potential future wedding might, with luck, happen by the time she's 80, considering some of the guys aren't exactly romantic experts. Luckily, they excel in other areas, like coming up with ideas. To distract her, they propose organizing a live event to celebrate the milestone. Okay, let's leave them to that task while we follow Ji-hwan on his mission, which, in this case, is buying a necklace for his girlfriend as an apology. His personal Cupid gave him a heads up about the colossal blunder he made. The plan was to surprise her, but it's Ji-hwan who ends up surprised, both by Yunha catching him shirtless and by realizing he can't find the gift he just bought. Yes, he managed to leave it at the office. At least he has the flowers, and she has a cake she baked to patch things up. So everything's fine. There's always tomorrow. But tomorrow won't be calm. I'll warn you now. True to his word, Ji-hwan teams up with Hyun-woo to take down his father and his gang. The atmosphere at the prosecutor's office is far from friendly. But no place is more unpleasant than the Thirsty Deer's meeting room, which is suddenly invaded by several gangsters led by Ji-hwan's gangster father. The place descends into chaos as the unhinged man tries to intimidate the executives into abandoning their current lives. The old man is pushing hard, trying to destroy everything his son has built, thinking this will make Ji-hwan return to the dark side. Even some physical fights break out to expel the intruders, but the resistance pays off. A significant number of employees, however, resign out of fear of the boss causing colossal damage. The mass resignation leaves Ji-hwan devastated. To make matters worse, Yang-hee suggests a kidnapping. Classic villain stuff, right? They target Yunha to lure Ji-hwan in. But surprisingly, the boss dismisses the idea as idiotic, arguing that Yang-hee is incompetent and always screws things up, something his son would never do. After this, Yang-hee is on the verge of a breakdown, feeling discarded by everyone. Proving that he is in fact an impulsive, unprepared fool, he decides to follow through with his plan alone. Taking advantage of Yunha's live celebration event, he lurks in the shadows and captures her the moment she's alone. It turns out that Yanu had gone to the party. So when he hears Yunha's scream, he runs as fast as he can and puts himself in front of her, taking the blow to the head from a brick meant for her. When Ji-hwan arrives and sees the scene, his first reaction is to freeze at the sight of the prosecutor bleeding in Yunha's arms. But his second reaction is far more intense. Realizing that Yang He actually intended to hurt Yunha, Ji-hwan's dormant aggressive instincts awaken, and in a blind rage, he beats Yang He severely until the police pull him away, having just arrived. Yunha watches in terror, not only because of Hyunu's bloody condition, but also because of her boyfriend's violent and uncontrolled reaction. Ji-hwan, on the other hand, feels ashamed for showing this side of himself and anguished for failing to protect Yunha as he arrived too late. Even though Yang He tries to play innocent at the police station, his criminal record, along with Hyunyu showing up to testify, exposes him. Yes, Hyunyu's head survived, a few stitches were needed, but his brain is functioning perfectly enough to present the police with well-organized evidence in Ji-hwan's favor, stating that he only acted in self-defense to help. However, this doesn't mean Hyunyu isn't angry with Ji-hwan for failing to keep his promise to protect Yunha. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan's gangster father shows up at the station as usual to stir up trouble. To make matters worse, Yunha also comes in, worried about Ji-hwan. The problem is that Ji-hwan is mentally punishing himself, believing he's the worst person alive, someone who belongs in the darkness. He withdraws into his shell, pushing Yunha away in a cold manner that deeply hurts her. The atmosphere is tense at the Thirsty Deer household, especially when Ji-hwan decides Yunha needs to leave and stay with Miho for her safety. As frightening as the situation was, Yunha knows Ji-hwan isn't a monster and refuses to abandon him, understanding that he's only trying to protect her from his dangerous father. However, since he's also overwhelmed by the uncertain future of the company, she agrees to give him space. Meanwhile, the staff reinforce Ji-hwan's worth, reminding him that he's respected because he can overcome anything, including living a normal life. With this small renewed energy, Ji-hwan tracks down one of his father's henchmen, who's willing to provide records of the gang's financial crimes. And because teamwork is never forgotten, Yunha doesn't sit idly by either. In a surprising turn, she teams up with Yena to help repair the damage to Thirsty Deer through a skewer challenge video. The company's marketing manager helps with the mission, setting them up to record in the home studio. While this sparks a hint of jealousy in Yena, she moves forward because there's work to be done. Moreover, Yena seems to be heading toward redemption and apparently moving into a potential romance with Thirsty Deer's marketing manager. Back to our main couple. Of course, it's Yunha's firm resolve that's needed to keep Ji-hwan from slipping away and to make him human again, right? After all, he turns into a stone without warning. But as the saying goes, constant dripping wears away the stone. He can't resist her tears, especially when she admits that she's afraid, not of what happened, but of being alone. No matter what, they have to stay together because they are a family. That's when Ji-hwan breaks down and pulls her into a tight embrace. Ji-hwan is like an open book, so transparent that Yunha can easily understand his fears. That's why, after receiving the necklace, she agrees to give him some time to definitively resolve all his issues and then fully embrace their love. During this time, the collaboration video between the two YouTubers becomes a massive success. The company's morale is lifted, sales skyrocket, and I admit it, they're adorable together. But the happiness doesn't last long. Unfortunately, Ji-hwan's gangster father hasn't vanished in a puff of smoke and remains determined to wreak havoc. To protect the company and his friend, Ji-hwan's employee seeks out the former boss. Even when slapped repeatedly, he begs for Ji-hwan to be left alone. It seems Ji-hwan had a premonition of disaster because he gazes at everyone with a farewell-like air before risking everything and heading to his father's warehouse, believing he would find the evidence he needed. What he actually walks into is a well-laid trap. His employee is also there, being held hostage and severely beaten. Driven by either pride or a twisted form of paternal love, Ji-hwan's deranged father tries to convince him to embrace his role as heir to the gang. But Ji-hwan refuses to accept these sick rules. As a result, he takes the beatings meant for his friend. Ji-hwan's upbringing was pure horror. He grew up surrounded by violence and was taught that killing was necessary to survive. Because of this, he believes he can endure more blows to protect those who matter to him. Meanwhile, Yunha senses something is wrong when her necklace breaks. And indeed, things take a turn for the worse. A few days ago, the prosecutor took a well-aimed jab at Yang He, mockingly calling him a discarded puppet. This only fueled the man's anger. So, of course, an ankle monitor after being released on bail wasn't going to stop Yang He from pursuing his deranged schemes. Yang He was also at the warehouse, armed only with a knife and immense courage, ready to confront the boss in a deadly showdown. He would have succeeded too if Ji-hwan hadn't stepped in and taken the stab intended for his despicable father. Even after enduring endless torment, our noble protagonist defended his father. As he collapses to the ground, all Ji-hwan can think about is Yoon-ha, who must be waiting for him until he loses consciousness. Shortly after, always late, the police finally arrive, as Ji-hwan had informed the prosecutor about the night's plans. Everyone is arrested. The father shows no reaction, while the thirsty deer are frantic with worry. Ji-hwan is rushed to the hospital. He has lost a lot of blood, and due to brain damage, he falls into a coma. Seeing Yoon-ha's sadness and worry, Hyunwoo calls her and, as a form of support, jokes that this time his competition will be against her. He says that as soon as Ji-hwan wakes up, he'll need to borrow him briefly for a victim's testimony, but promises to return him quickly. Even though it hurts, Hyunwoo acknowledges the depth of their bond and finally gives up competing for Yoon-ha's heart. After much drama, the moment finally comes for Ji-hwan to awaken from his coma. When Yoon-ha enters the room to give her boyfriend an emotional hug, we can finally bid farewell to this sad chapter of the drama and welcome the return of happiness. Yang He will spend a long time in prison. The same goes for Ji-hwan's gangster father, who, after nearly watching his son die to protect him, realizes how much he has lost. In a surprising turn, the father decides to come clean, confessing his endless list of crimes. They will never be a normal family, especially since the father has no intention of changing, but at least he grants Ji-hwan the freedom to live his life as he pleases. The welcome home party is already underway, and it's heartwarming to see this lively gang returning to their roots, especially Ji-hwan, who, as always, can't take his eyes off his kitten and doesn't even bother hiding his eagerness to finally get some alone time with her. Nothing like a near-death experience to make a man confess his love in full and finally overcome his fear of physical intimacy, right? Months pass, and now we're celebrating the 100-day birthday of Il-young and Mi-ho's adorable baby girl. Having this little bundle of joy surrounded by doting uncles leaves Ji-hwan captivated, imagining how he and Yoon-ha would make fantastic parents. And honestly, it's the perfect time for such thoughts. The couple is already incredibly successful in their careers, and if they wait much longer, there's a serious risk of Ji-hwan melting into a puddle of love. He thinks about it so much that his men are already used to carrying him around like a Ken doll whenever he freezes with a dreamy smile, picturing a bright and colorful future with Yoon-ha. But now, it's Yoon-ha who has shelved the idea, fully focused on her work. Every time she hesitates to bring up the topic, Ji-hwan can't help but think of all the missed chances, but he won't give up. He might not have time to pay attention in meetings, but he's never late by even half a second to any of Yoon-ha's events, proudly acting as her personal manager. And of course, continuing to be dazzled by her radiant presence only reinforces one thing. He has to take the plunge and propose. As he searches for the perfect engagement ring, let's catch up with what everyone else is up to. Starting with Mi-ho and Il-young, we're not the only ones dropping by. The in-laws arrive early too, interrupting what might have been a romantic evening. But if this couple has survived a crying baby for 3 months and still has the energy to work on raising Korea's declining birth rate, it's safe to say they're truly living an intense love story. No one can deny that. Unlike Hyun-yu, who for the past 10 months has been skipping every blind date his friends arrange. It doesn't matter if the candidates have perfectly matched personalities, astrological signs, blood types, or phenology, whatever that means, he still hasn't gotten over Yoon-ha. If only he'd given a chance to a new romance that's been right under his nose, working in the same office. But no. It would be nice to see him take a small step forward, but perhaps seeing Yoon-ha crossing the road and carving out her own path will give him the green light he needs to move on. At least he's not the only one still single. The 2 eldest Thirsty Deer members are also destined to remain the fun single uncles for a bit longer, until they improve their horrendous seduction techniques. At least Ji-hwan has become a master in that department. On the highly anticipated special night, Ji-hwan delivers his greatest act of romance. When Eun-ha arrives home, the lights are all lit up, leading her attention to a hole in the yard, the one they dug as kids. She opens the box inside and finds a simple yet meaningful note from her Prince Charming, dressed in a pink suit, asking her to play together forever, as he wants to be her loyal subscriber and cherish her for eternity. And when Eun-ha accepts the engagement ring with a kiss, we die of happiness because we know they'll share a blissful life together, joined by the Cupids, who watch everything unfold with teary eyes, thrilled to see the family growing and being fully embraced. The series ends with the united family donning matching animal-themed overcoats to support their Empress Penguin at another event, something they'll continue to do together for a long, long time.